Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another gear raffle and review. Today, we are going to look at the Quarter Dome 1 tent from REI. So, let's get right into it. A coffee. There's a piece of grass on my coffee. Alright guys, so in this video, we're going to take a look at the Quarter Dome 1 from REI. Before we get into the review and the raffle, if you guys are new to these videos, check out my Patreon page, and for as little as $1 a month, you can get one entry in every single gear raffle that I do. I am so excited to talk about this tent because out of the gear that I get a chance to review, a lot of times I don't get a whole lot of hands-on experience. I was able to take this tent on a week-long trip with Lucky on the AT, so I got a lot of time in the tent, I got a lot of setup, I got a lot of tear down. I really feel like I got a good idea of the things I like and the things I don't like about this tent. Out of the package, I mean, the first thing I can tell is the material on this tent. You know, they try to keep things very, very light, and the material shows. I mean, you can really feel the thin, almost kind of fragile feel to this tent, but I really put it through its paces and it is durable. I would trust the seams 100%. I mean, REI makes some really good gear and they back it with great customer service. I mean, I would not hesitate in thinking that this tent is of any kind of low quality because of the feel and how lightweight everything is. I mean, it is put together really, really good. First thing I want to talk about is weight. So let's head on over to the scale. Bring it in here somehow. The ground tarp, tent, and rainfly come in at 32.7 ounces. The tent poles at 12.8. The tent stakes coming in at 4.5. You put it all together and you get a total of 50 ounces, or 3.12 pounds. This does make me wonder exactly where they get these specifications that they have on their website. Either way, it's a pretty light tent. With that said, it's not all thumbs up when it comes to the tent. There's a couple things that I feel this tent lacks in. Because this tent is so lightweight, that setup is very crucial, that you're using all of the Velcro to keep the stakes in line with the seams, and that you're actually staking it out properly to get the tension correct. If not, you know, the zippers don't want to open up quite right if it's a little bit too slack. And I think it's just you have to pay a little bit closer attention to your setup when using a tent like this than you can with, you know, your heavier duty tents that you really can just kind of grab and pull and stake in there, and it doesn't matter if you're yanking on the zipper because who really cares? I mean, they're heavier duty. With this, you know, you almost have to hold things in place to work the zippers sometimes because they're so lightweight. This tent, for one thing, is super simple to set up. Being a freestanding tent just makes it easier to set up. You don't rely so heavily on the stakes and having it staked out to be able to just get the tent set up. To make the setup even easier, they've color coordinated parts of it, so after a little bit of practice, this thing is very easy to set up. A couple of the features that I really like with this tent is this model, they've kind of raised the roof, so to speak, with the inside of the tent. You have lots of headspace, which is very nice. The vestibule's really good sized, and the tent itself overall, for being, you know, a tent that's under 3 pounds, it is quite spacious. You know, I was able to even bring my pack inside after I had pulled all my gear out, and there was enough room to store my pack at the base of my feet. Not to say that there wasn't plenty of room in the vestibule as well. So the added room is a really nice feature. One of my favorite parts about being in a tent as opposed to like a shelter or a hammock is the coziness of it, and the fact that it can almost feel like home. And this tent, you know, offers some great spots for hanging stuff up. It's got a nice pocket in the back. The pocket's actually sewn a little bit goofy, and if you have small items, they can kind of get caught behind a flap, which is a little bit weird, but I mean, that pocket there is still really good right beside your head. And at the very top of the tent, There's even there's two pockets in the mesh up there, which I haven't seen in another tent, and I really do like for a headlamp or for your phone with an alarm. I mean, and that's how I used it when on this trip. Worked out really well. Right up there by the top pockets, there's also a zipper that allows you to access the one vent at the top of the tent to help vent that condensation out of your tent. Having a zipper on the inside is fantastic. Allows you to open and close that vent from inside the tent. This is also a feature that I haven't seen on other tents. This is the first I've seen it, and it's really nice feature to have. Speaking of the ventilation on this tent, I was hiking in some very humid, very hot weather. I mean, we had 80s and 90s throughout the day and didn't get much lower than 60 at night, and it was very muggy. So as far as being in this tent in the very hot weather, I would say that it does lack, if it's raining and stuff, you want to fly all the way up, that vent at the top. Unless you've got a breeze, you're not going to get much airflow. So it does feel a little stuffy inside, but with the temperatures we had, almost any tent is going to feel stuffy. This tent does offer some really nice features of unfolding the vestibule all the way and actually rolling up the entire vestibule, leaving the front of the tent completely open, which would increase airflow dramatically, and it really does help in these muggier situations. And then you could be like that until it's night and then zip your vestibule down if it's not raining. So it does give you some options, but the ventilation is not the greatest with it set up entirely, with the vestibule set up entirely closed. The vent at the top, it just doesn't have the greatest ventilation, but it does give you, like I said, the options to open it up for better ventilation. The one thing this tent has is a very unique shape. The poles come out and are actually kind of angled. I think it was to increase the size inside, but I almost think this is for a style. It's more cosmetic. I'm not positive, but I think it is, and it does make the tent have a nice, cool shape. But the one thing that does is it stretches the tent in one spot in particular by the entrance door, where it comes out, it stretches it, and it can make that zipper, when completely opened, a little bit difficult to get around. You can't just yank it and pull it down. I think that's a little bit of a downside to that design. Very easily fixed. You don't open that zipper up those last 3 inches, and it's simply there's a simple workaround. But I think that because of the shape that they've chosen, there's a little bit of a kink in their design there. And also, after folding the stakes all the way up, because the stakes are so odd shaped, they're kind of hard to pack. Not real difficult, and I'm really being picky now, but they are kind of hard to pack because of the curved shape, the different sizes, the addition of those spokes that all of the pieces come into really adds some weird shape to it when you're trying to pack it away. I got used to it, but I think that if they kept it a little simpler, straight poles, more consistent sizes, I think that the setup may be a little bit easier. You'd lose a little bit of that cool shape, but I mean, for me, it's all function. I'm not too worried about the way it looks. Stakes for this tent, I've talked about these stakes before, these triangle shaped stakes. The dirt gets caught in them, and that was my first thought. Well, actually, after using this tent for a week and getting in a couple different situations, I kind of like these stakes for one reason, is that shape makes them very strong, and they do not bend. You can really pound on these things with a rock and break through some ground, and because of that shape, they tend to not bend at all, whereas your normal stake may bend. So it's a toss-up. You don't have to worry about these stakes bending. They're nice and lightweight, but they get dirt stuff in them, so when you're packing them away, you're either carrying that extra weight in dirt or you're scraping them out. So kind of iffy on that. I'm not sure. I've been able to work with regular stakes for a long time and dealt with them bending a little bit, so I would probably switch these out for another lightweight stake that is solid, so it doesn't get dirt in it. With the design of this tent and being freestanding, I love the way that this tent is set up, especially the way that you can use the footprint with the rain cover and actually set this tent up without the tent underneath it. Now, that's not going to be very useful for sleeping, I don't think, because you normally would want the inside tent up because of the bug screen on it. But if you're caught into a downpour, and Sharon and I have actually had this happen when we were out hiking, and with our other REI tent that is very similar in this, except for it was a 2-man, the Passage 2, we got caught in a downpour and were able to quickly throw out the ground tarp, throw out the stakes and the rain fly, and pop the tent up and make this very quick shelter that we were able to get underneath and get out of the rain. And we actually ended up staying there that night and not moving on, which you could, move on from there. But for us, we set that up. The rain just kept coming and coming and coming. So we unpacked underneath there. We are underneath, the rain fly, and we were able to set our tent up while we were under the rain fly. It's a little bit tricky, but it definitely can be done. And when you have a tent that's not freestanding, you don't even have that option. So having the option to be able to set up the rain fly without the tent underneath it and get yourself a dry place to then set up your tent is really, really great. Also gives you the ability to take the tent down while underneath it. So if it's raining in the morning, you can pack up all of your stuff, and the last 2 things to pack up are, the rain fly and the ground tarp. Well, your stakes and poles as well, but all things that are potentially wet and you don't have to worry about them getting wet. So you'd be able to pack up all of your gear from underneath that, including the tent that you want to keep dry, and then get out into the rain and pack everything else up. So, that option, for me, it's worth the extra weight in carrying these freestanding tents along, or as opposed to your tents that require your trekking poles and to be staked out more aggressively. Right along with that, this tent can be set up without stakes at all. Even if you wanted to put the rain fly on it and not stake it in, say you were on the top of a rock and that's all you could do and there was really no staking, this would set up and I believe would keep you dry even if it was raining for the most part. I was in a couple downpours with this thing, and as far as keeping me dry, it was fine. But I just like the ability to not rely so heavily on tie-down straps and staking. One part of the design that I wasn't crazy about was, because I like to rely less on the staking and rely more on the shape of the tent, where the front entrance to this tent was, they shaped it in a way that requires a second stake. Well, not a second stake, but requires another stake to hold that front out. I actually tried it without that, and the zipper does not work very good unless that's pulled tight in that front corner. So that's taking a tent that is relatively unneeding of the stakes in freestanding, and now you say, all right, we have to have this stake in to pull that front out and allow the door to open better. I think that was just a little mistake in the design, because without staking that out, it doesn't work real good. But you've got a tent that doesn't really need stakes so much, so why would you incorporate that into the design to need it to be staked out? I think that this could have been done more flat in the zipper design where that was unneeded. Again, something I believe they did just for the cosmetics. It does look good. Really, guys, I am just having to try to find things wrong with this tent. As many of these little things that I've brought up, none of them are deal breakers. And for $270, it's not the most expensive tent out there, and it really does function really, really well. And I would gladly own this tent. If I had the extra money, or I didn't already have a tent that works, this is definitely one that I would consider, because like I said, it functions so well. All of these little things I've said, I was just trying to find something that was wrong with it, and all of them had workarounds. I mean, I was able to make it work perfectly for my needs on this week long, and I had downpouring rain. I actually set this tent up on a tent pad that didn't have any place to stake anything down, was able to tie things that come with enough extra, tie down ropes and stuff to make everything work. Really, this tent is just a really, really nice tent. All right, guys, the moment that you've all been waiting for, the raffle. Like I said in the last gear raffle, I've done away with the hat and drawing, because as many new people as we've gotten, as much as this is switched around, it's become very painful and difficult to go through each one and count and make sure everybody has the right amount. So we've got it in a spreadsheet. Sharon has already found the winner, and drum roll, please. I'm going to insert a drum roll. It's cool. And the winner is Jennifer Cox. Jennifer Cox, you have just won yourself the Quarter Dome 1 from REI. Congratulations. Well, that's going to do it for this gear raffle, guys. Stay tuned for the next one. I'm going to be raffling off that Sea to Summit sleeping pad. I'm going to try to do it next weekend, and then the following weekend continue with these big 3 items and do that ULA pack, the CDT pack from ULA. So hopefully we'll be able to get a gear raffle every weekend for the next 3 weeks and get rid of these, and raffle off these 3 big items. I hope you guys are excited. I'm very excited, and I've had a blast testing out this gear. We are getting more patrons, so this is growing just like I was hoping it would, which is allowing us to do bigger and better gear. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you have any suggestion for the next big raffles to do. I don't want to choose them myself. I want you guys to be able to make these choices, because in the end, it's you guys that can win the gear. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching, and remember, these gear raffles are just my opinion, and if you don't like it, you can go take a hike. Bye-bye. I like it, I dig it, I want more of it.